Oh, yes, that would be me. My name is Linda. And he said, yes, Linda Kirker. And I said, yes. And he said, have you ever thought about doing a program about reverse mortgages? And I said, well, that's an interesting question. And I have questions about whether that's a good approach to take or not. So I'll do some homework, and some point in the next couple of months, I'll do a program on that. I need to gather some information, just so that you know that these things might be coming up going forward. And also, I wanted you to know, a friend gave me this today. There is a new book out. It is a children's illustrated book, and it's titled Proud to Be an American. And guess who it's written by? Lee Greenwood, the singer who sings the song Proud to Be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And so I thought you might like to know about that. It would be a great way to introduce our young children to being an American, what it means to be an American. So if you're interested in it, you can go to Lee, L-E-E, Greenwood.com and look it up. Okay, that's my intro for today. And with that, I would like to introduce you to my guest. I'm sure many of you already know him. It's his first time on the program. And his name is Jerry Morong, and he's a citizen of the town of St. Albans. Welcome to the show, Jerry.
Glad to be here.
Nice to have you here. We've spoken about having you come on the show, and we got it worked out. And you have a couple of topics that you thought might be interesting to discuss.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us first just a little bit about you? I know you've been involved to a great extent in the community.
Well, I have. I live in St. Albans town. I've been in town for over 50 years. I was a member of the town select board. I am currently the chairman of the Board of Civil Authority in St. Albans town and Justice of the Peace, and I like to be involved. And in the past, I've been on the zoning board, the planning commission, and, and all those various functions. So I try to stay involved in the community.
And we need, and God bless you for doing that, and we need a lot more people to step up and get involved. Instead of having the same people involved all the time, have a revolving door, so to speak, with fresh blood, new ideas, and so forth.
That's right. Yeah, we certainly do.
And these days, we hadn't planned to talk about this, and we don't need to, but there is a great deal going on between the town and the city. You know, a lot of discussion going on about how they can work together to the benefit of each, and it's not easy.
No, the big issue, of course, is city water and sewer that that the town desperately needs. We've got people that want to come into our industrial park, and we can't offer space to there's space for them, but we can't have them come in because we don't have the water and sewer hookup.
So that in turn affects the potential tax base.
Absolutely.
It affects the job market. So that's a problem.
It is. It's a big problem. Absolutely.
And you know, I saw this when I lived in Essex Junction. Competition between the town and the village. And both had, you know, their own stories and their own good ideas, but it's very hard to work those things out sometimes. There has to be something in it for everybody.
It does, and you know, the people in St. Albans town have a fairly low tax base, and the discussion has been now to possibly join forces with the city on the city water and sewer, buy into it, so to speak. It's going to be a hard sell because the town is rural. There are not a lot of people, well, there are a lot of people that are connected to the city water and sewer, but there are a lot more people who have their own wells and septic systems and live in the country, and they certainly don't want to see their taxes go up to support the city water and sewer situation. And
because
even
they're
though
already paid for their well to be drilled, and for the electricity for that and so forth. They're self-maintaining.
that's true. Yes, and
So is it, excuse me if I'm interrupting you.
No.
So if there were to be an expanded water sewer system for the town, would that be funded only by the users, or would everybody in the town who isn't connected to it still have to pay that because it would be bonded?
yeah, I think eventually it would have to show up in the taxes, property taxes, and of course right now with the situation that we have, the users pay the fees, and of course I have a well and a septic system, and I really don't care to have
I do
city
too.
water and sewer.
Yeah.
And so
Well, I was just wondering, what is the capacity of the city water and sewer system, and how much more expansion can it accommodate within the city versus the town? How much expansion can there be, and where should it go? That's another question.
it is another question. I certainly don't have an answer for that one, but yeah.
I don't know what the capacity is.
I think they have additional capacity right now, but I think they're looking to upgrade. They're
The function
yes.
or the size.
Well, I think they're maybe both. I'm not sure. I
Yeah,
know
I don't-
they're talking about upgrading the existing sewer plant, and
I see.
so
Well, I don't live in the city or the town, but I try to at least have a little bit of information about what's going on, because I'm in the city and the town so much.
certainly, yeah.
So, well, let's get on to one of the topics. Here, you picked the one that you said I have 3 here, and we can talk about other things.
Okay, I think one of the topics, and I'm probably not going to be real popular in saying this, but school consolidation.
Neither am I.
School consolidation, I think, is an issue statewide, and right here in St. Albans, I really firmly believe that the city and town school systems should merge into one, consolidate. I can see K through 5 at one of the schools, and 6 through 8 at the other school, and they all end up going to the same high school anyhow, and I think we'd have a better system with a lot less money. It would be
Now, how do you see that there would be a financial savings if you took the children, just as an example, from the town elementary and middle school and brought them into the city school for those grades? Would there be transportation costs, that busing that would have to be increased? The children would be, how would the taxation go? I don't know.
Well, those are items that would have to be worked out, but I don't think the busing would be a big issue, because they have to bus the kids anyhow to the town school particularly.
I walked.
Well, so did I, but that's unheard of nowadays.
Yeah, well.
And that's all. But right now there's a duplication of effort between the 2 schools.
Well, let me ask you this, and I don't know how in depth you are familiar with this, but I know the city school is all into this new community-based everything, and I don't know if the town school has the same philosophy. Is it good that the schools have their own ways of doing things? I don't know. I have a lot of questions.
Yeah, well, I think everybody will have a lot of questions on how that's going to take place, but I think the way this city school has set up this community involvement thing is very good, and I don't know that the town has that philosophy or not. My kids graduated years ago from town school.
Mine
I've had
too,
grandchildren
mine
there and so forth, but I haven't been really associated with the school in the last few years. But I can see it working very well, though, because if you 7th and 8th grade, let's say the class at the town at the city school was about 60 in the 7th, 8th grade that graduated this year. Town school, I'm not sure how many were in that class, but I would say probably about the same number. So if you consolidated and had the 6th, 7th, and 8th grades, say at the existing town school, then you would certainly have more students, and you'd probably have to have more than one 8th grade and more than one 7th grade, and it would have to work out that way.
So what would you do then? Take the elementary students out of one school and move them to the other? I'm not.
Yeah, I would think that the current 6th, 7th, and 8th grade situation in the city school, let's say that we moved them to the town school, and we moved had K through 5 down at the city elementary school, then that would that type of consolidation I think would improve the educational possibilities for the youngsters, and it also would be a tax savings for the residents.
How would it be a tax savings?
Because we're still be running 2 separate schools. There's no doubt about that. But you wouldn't have a duplication of programs, and so I think eventually it would gender some cost savings.
So some of the teachers would have to move along with the students.
Yes.
To accommodate the numbers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So.
Boy, that would be.
And I know there's strong feelings both ways about this situation, but.
Well, yeah. I definitely want to know more about the whole impact of consolidating schools. I don't believe that it's going to save money. Not at all. At least, well, if we could have one superintendent of schools for the whole state. Now, I don't mean to put anybody out of work, but I'm assuming that people who are, if that were to happen, like they have in New York City, millions of students, and they have one superintendent. But then that leads to control from the top down, and I like control at the local level.
Well, that's a big sticking point. You've got some of these towns that have an elementary school that have about 35 students in it, and they don't want to give that up because they want they want the local control. However, we have, as far as I'm concerned, we have too many school districts in this state, and every school district has an administrative staff, has a superintendent and business manager, and if we consolidate schools, we can possibly eliminate some of these school districts, consolidate the districts, and that would save a lot in administrative costs for one thing. And
ostensibly, I would like to see the schools have the opportunity to be self-controlling, like empower the principal and empower the teachers, and let them fly. That's my phone, that little dinghy. I should have turned it off. But one of the things that I think is really important, and I've often related this, my deceased husband graduated from, oh sure, Linda, Danville High School.
Okay.
There were 12 students in his graduating class.
Yep.
And they were all very successful.
A lot of individual attention there.
Yes. And you, as a teacher, I could have a pretty darn good idea of what each one of those students was doing, how hard they were working, how well they were performing. And I think when you get huge numbers together, something gets lost.
Well, I can agree with that. I went to a small school in Maine. Matter of fact, I started out in a one-room schoolhouse, and we had K through 8, all one room with one teacher. And I was in the first grade in arithmetic. I was in the third grade in reading and spelling, and you got to progress that way according to your abilities.
Absolutely.
And and that wasn't bad. But then my high school, we had 180 kids in the whole high school.
Wow.
And my class was one of the largest graduating classes ever, 38 students in that. And matter of fact, I'm going to Maine for my 60th high school class reunion
Fantastic.
this month.
Oh, that's exciting. Good for you, Jerry. Well, my high school class had about 110, 113 graduates. And granted, those were different days from today. There wasn't much top-down influence. The teachers were in charge. At least that's the way it appeared. And you knew why you were there to learn.
Sure.
And I won't be popular for this, but I tend to think that we should try an experiment and divide up the children according to their work and accomplishment.
Sure.
And see how that works.
Well, I think if you, like, as I mentioned, if the 7th and 8th, say the 8th graders went to the town school, they'd have a lot of students, but they could have the more advanced students in maybe a separate group, and the slower students in another group, and get more individual attention for those kids. And
well, and they would all have the opportunity to advance at their effort level or their ability level or whatever. I don't think it's ever a good idea to assume that someone can't do, to put labels on people, or to assume that someone isn't capable of something under the right circumstances. But to me, one of the biggest issues we have in education, and for heaven's sakes, I am not denouncing teachers. I don't think they're all excellent, but I know there are many good ones out there.
oh, absolutely.
And they work hard, and they're dedicated. I forgot where I was going with I got sidetracked. I wanted to make sure that was understood. But there are children who work at different levels, and we need to respect that and have high expectations for everybody, including the teachers, to do their level best, whatever that might be, and to stretch, to expect a little bit more of Johnny or Billy or Susie or whatever, and do what it takes. But we have so many things that are in our schools today that never were there before.
Well, we have our classes are getting smaller in size, yet every classroom now has a teacher and an assistant or paraeducator in it. And if you go by the parking lot at the town school, it's full of cars because there's a lot of employees there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that, I've been told by a teacher that they have to do that because there's no discipline in the home and the teachers are expected to discipline the children. Well, here's another side to that. Now, I'm not saying that all children who are unruly or undisciplined or don't pay attention in the classroom come from broken families or dysfunctional families, okay? It could be most likely, yes, but not necessarily all. But the thing is, when the children, well, two things.
when the children come to school, the rules have to be laid out, and there have to be consequences. If you don't follow the rules, this is life.
Oh, absolutely. it is.
Eventually, you're going to be out in the world, hopefully, in a job. There are expectations, there are rules and regulations, and you need to learn them when you're a small child.
And I think a good teacher sets the students
tone.
down at the beginning of the year, and these are the rules, and this is what we do in my classroom.
Exactly.
And
I have a friend whose daughter does just that. She's a very meticulous person, very smart, wonderful with the children. Just wonderful with them. But when they moved her, she teaches in Essex, and when they moved her from first grade to fifth grade, she said to her mom, "Oh boy, fifth graders, that's going to be tough." But what she did was she set the tone the first day of school. She welcomed them, she was friendly, but she outlined what's expected, what's okay, what isn't okay. If you have a problem, you don't talk to your neighbor, you come and see me, and we'll work it out together. Anyway, she started giving homework, and the parents were calling up and coming in and complaining, "You're making my child work too hard." And by Christmas, after September, October, November, the 4th month, the parents were bringing her gifts and thank you notes for, "You've done wonders with my child." Okay? This is what they need.
Yeah, children want to learn. It just got to get.
They need boundaries.
Yes, they do.
Because they're children. They can't just be allowed to run wild.
That's
You
right.
know, that's not fair to them. And their ability to fit into the standards of a culture, of a society. We want our children to be successful.
Oh, absolutely we do, yeah.
And you have to learn self-discipline along the way.
And hopefully they learn a lot of that in the home environment. That's
Well, that's the other place I was just going to go. And I've said this before, but it's really important to me to say it again. And that is, I approached the Agency of Human Services in the form of a letter. I never got a response. But I wanted to know if, now I've been a single mom after a divorce, okay? So I know it's not easy. It's not easy on the kids, and it's not easy on the parents. But you're in a place where you have to do what you have to do. Okay?
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Which is what I did. Now, if I had been a person who wanted to or expected someone else to take care of me and my kids, then I would have gone to the state, but that never occurred to me. So I say, if you are receiving money from your neighbors, the taxpayers in your community and your state, for your housing, your children's education, your food, your medical care and everything, you have a big obligation to give something back. And what you can give back is to teach your children why they're going to school. Make sure when they're little they learn their ABCs before they get into school. They learn how to behave and interact in a positive way with other children. They respect authority. All these little things. So why doesn't the Agency of Human Services have a program? And if they do, someone please call up and tell me how that works, because we're having a problem in our schools.
Oh, we are.
And a lot of it has to do with misbehavior. So I want to know what is expected of the parent or parents in a family that's living at the benefit or the goodness of the state and the people who are paying the tab. What are we expecting of them that for school readiness? there can be program. I'd rather see a program, and I'm not big on government programs because I'm big on personal responsibility and accountability for your actions and your responsibilities. But if there were ever going to be a program that would be very beneficial to the teachers, to the other students, to the students involved, to the ones that need the help, and to society at large in the future of these kids, it's to ensure that there's something in place.
Well, I think they have that preschool program now that they take his kids.
No, I'm not in favor of that either.
Well, they're taking youngsters as young as 3 years old.
And I think that's a big mistake.
Well, I do too. Where are the parents? They should.
That's one way to increase the student population because we've lost 26,000 students since 1997.
Right.
Okay? So that's one way for the school unions to bring more children into the fold, okay? But that's not necessarily a positive for the children.
Okay.
They need parents who are going to be told they have to toe the mark.
Mm-hmm. Well, very difficult situation though.
I don't think so.
Well,
you have to have the will, and you have to say, if someone came to me from the state and I was getting all these benefits, and they said, in order to receive these, you have some obligations to meet. And here's how you do it. We're going to send X person to your home, or we're going to have a training session on parenting. And you have to be there. It's going to be right in your community. It might even be in your school or in your church or whatever. But we're going to have parental training programs with expectations and obligations to your children and to those who are helping you. What is wrong with that?
well, it would be good. The only thing that I can say about that is so many families now are single parent families.
I understand.
And the working mother has to support the family. I know that a number of years ago, one of the technicians that worked for me was assistant coach in football at BFA. And out of the 40 kids or so that were on the football team, half of them were from single parent homes. And so that is, it would be a very difficult program to bring about for working parents, I would think. I mean,
well, I guess somebody would have to do a study on how many of these people who are receiving all their needs being taken care of by others, how many of them are working, how many are working full-time. Our illustrious president, one of the first things he did when he came into office, you have this Reach Up program for single moms with children, obviously. He took away the work and school requirements.
Yeah, that's.
How are they going to get ahead?
That's the wrong direction to go.
Of course, it's the wrong direction.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's an insurmountable problem when you look at the issues that we have in the schools. We wouldn't need half as many people working in the schools if the children came to school ready to learn.
Oh, you hope the parents have their children ready. I mean, I know my grandchildren, as young as 4 or 5 years old, can read and write their name and so forth. So many kids come to school and can't read, and they're not prepared.
But I agree with you. Young children have very receptive brains.
Oh, absolutely they do.
It is amazing what a 2.5-year-old can do when someone takes the time and makes the effort.
That's right.
To work with them. They can learn to read at 2.5 years old. It's unbelievable. And we're letting our kids down by not bringing that opportunity to them.
But what you're suggesting, it'd be another state-run program that.
No, it would replace other things.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
I plan to go down. In fact, Don Tessier was on the show last week, and he wanted to go down. Both of us said we wanted to go down to the Agency of Human Services and get some answers about programs.
Mm-hmm.
What is out there? How does it work? Who's eligible for it?
Mm-hmm.
What are the outcomes? And is it worth expanding the program? And if you expanded the program, could you get rid of something else? But you know, there's job security in these agencies, okay?
Absolutely.
We have to
Sure.
keep expanding government. Our governor increased the workers in state government just in his last 6 years by 700.
I don't know if it's true, but I understand that Vermont has about a third of the population of New Hampshire, and we have more state workers than New Hampshire does.
Yes.
And
Yep.
that's
Yep.
yeah. There's something wrong with that picture.
And a higher percentage by far of people on welfare.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes. Yeah.
So what are we doing wrong? Is anybody willing to look into it
well, that's
and get better outcomes? We owe that to these children and their families. That's my take on it. I know I'm tough, but you know what? You don't get anywhere by being wishy-washy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can do things in a diplomatic way, but be firm about we need to try this and see, even if it's a pilot project in one of the schools.
Well, I would guess that maybe that's why they have the assistant teachers or paraeducators in the schools to.
Why should you need those?
Well, you shouldn't need them, I wouldn't think.
When I was in the classroom, there were 25 students and one teacher, and everybody paid attention because you knew. If you didn't, you were hauled down to the principal's office.
Correct. And,
Okay, and then when you got home, you heard about it there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Certainly. If one of my youngsters behaved in school and I heard about it from the school, then they got worse when they got home than what they
Yeah,
had in school. And that's
So I don't know if we've beaten this to death, but I would like to know, and then we'll get to another topic, Jerry. The school in Montgomery is very small and has some of the highest outcomes for the children scholastically.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. And
They do exceptionally well. Why would you take that small school and move it to another place when they're so successful?
well, I think looking at the way they run the school systems in a lot of the southern states, and I think we may have a better education system overall than what a lot of the states do have, but their school systems are run pretty much on a county level, and a lot of consolidated schools down there.
See, I don't like county government. I don't like state running stuff. The federal government should not be involved in education at all, and yet we have a federal Department of Education that's working in concert with the Bill Gates Foundation to undercover, just do all the work. No legislators voted on Common Core. It just was sold, literally sold to the states. They got money and they accepted it. Bill Gates Foundation put up a lot of money, and I called the State Department of Education to try to find out how much money Vermont got to accept Common Core. But I didn't. I got a roundabout answer. But I'm not going to give up. Anyway, let's talk about. Do you want to talk about the Vermont tax system situation or the elections?
Well, let's talk about the tax situation in Vermont. You know, in 1910, there was only one tax that people paid, and that was property taxes. Now, there are probably 25 or 30 taxes. Every program that the state comes up with, they bring in another tax to pay for it, like the sugar drink tax that they just put on.
Taxes or fees.
Yeah. And, you know, as a retiree, it is very hard to live in this state. And there are many, many people that are leaving the state.
I know.
My oldest son said he's probably retire in about 10 years, and he won't retire in Vermont because he can't afford to live here.
Yep.
And we have one of the highest costs of living in the U.S. and
Yes, we do.
our legislature is just, they haven't seen a tax they don't like. And
No, they're not looking at the big picture. They're doing all these little social issues in legislation, but they're not tackling the spending problem.
that's right. That's
We
right.
have a decline in business. We have a decline in people working. We have an increase in seniors and young people leaving the state because it's either too expensive or they can't find a job that they want.
That's right.
And so we are 39th, let me see, how's that go? 39th fiscally the worst.
And our governor keeps touting how our unemployment figures are so low. They're so low because a lot of people have given up
Yes,
jobs. And,
yes.
and
But they don't, I don't think they count all the people who aren't working in the unemployment, okay? We have a lot of people in this country, 23% I think was the real unemployment rate. And yet what are we doing? We're ushering in all of these illegals who are taking jobs that eliminate jobs for Americans.
well, you know, that's another issue that people complain about the Mexicans coming and working on the farms. Well, the problem is people in this country don't want those kind of jobs. And they,
Well, isn't that too bad?
it is too bad. It is too bad.
You know
And-
what? If you don't want that job, then find something better, but don't expect us to support you. Okay?
That's right. Well, I'm certainly a big opponent of the welfare system because our welfare system is just
Broken.
it is, and the average welfare payment in this state is $42,000, and that's more than what our GIs are making serving over in Afghanistan and Iraq. And
Yes.
What incentive do those people have to get a job when they get that much on welfare?
That's all part of the education and the requirements to benefit from state programs, okay? You have to have requirements, you have to have expectations, you have to ensure that people assume responsibilities to be good citizens and to raise good citizens. And there's nothing connected to, and a lot of the reason is probably because a lot of the money comes from the federal government. And the federal government is in the business of expanding government and making more and more people dependent on government, okay? Then you can control them.
And that's a socialist
That
agenda.
is progressivism, socialism, communism, whatever you want to call it.
Winston Churchill once said that socialism works as long as the government doesn't run out of money.
Well, and similarly said by Margaret Thatcher, socialism works until you run out of other people's money. Yes, right.
That's right, and that's one of the, when we were talking about elections, that's one of my big concerns about Bernie running for the presidency, because he's saying a lot of things that people want to hear, and he's tackling problems that people relate to, and but he's an avowed socialist, and he wants to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. That's one of his
Ridiculous.
goals. Minimum wage jobs were not meant to be a career. They're
That's
meant
right.
to, and these people that are on minimum wage jobs, you would expect them to be out there trying to improve themselves and get better paying jobs. But to give them $15 an hour, again, that is our average wage for GIs serving overseas is like $39,000, and here our welfare workers are making welfare people are getting more than that.
Yes, they can receive as much as $42,000 a year under the right circumstances for if they access are allowed to access all the programs that are out there. And that's a sin. That really is
Well, it is,
terrible.
and I don't know if it's changed now, but the way it used to be, if a person was on welfare and wanted to get off, and they ended, the state had some job training programs they could get on, and so they graduated from this and got a job, but the job didn't pay as much as what they were making on welfare. So what incentive is it for them to get off?
There
I
is
don't
none.
understand why the state didn't add some to their wages to bring them up to the same level until they were able to climb up to a higher level in the job they're on.
In other words,
Subsidize their wages is
yeah, that you can, I don't even know if there's a limit anymore on how many years you can be on the dole.
I don't either. But the state at that time said either you're on welfare or you're off welfare. These people go on a job and so they lose their welfare. So I would have thought it would have been a lot better for the state to subsidize these people to bring their wages up to a point where that were livable until they could improve themselves.
I agree with you, Jerry, that minimum wage I always thought of as an opportunity for, let's say, a retired person who isn't quite cutting it as the costs go up, so to get a part-time job to supplement their income, okay, in retirement, or a student in school,
Right.
earning some money to keep to get a car, or to pay for their books in college, or to help out the family like my father did. He actually, many years ago, it was around Depression time, left school to help support his family.
Oh yeah, a lot of.
And then he went back to school and put himself through night school.
Sure. Yeah, I would think minimum wage jobs were for high school students or college students during the summer
Yeah.
when they're and to get money for books and stuff.
But back to Bernie, his philosophy is minimum wage is, you know, a person is supposed to provide for a family. No.
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 That's right.
You want to provide for a family, you get yourself educated, you be the hardest worker, you know, for your employer, and you prove yourself, and then you climb up the ladder. And if that employer doesn't reward you for your hard work and your stellar performance, then you know how good you are and how hard a worker you are, and you start looking for somebody who will appreciate you and pay you what you're worth. But everybody now, it's all about, well, we all have to make sure that everybody has the same wage, okay? And this redistribution of wealth, and do you know what our president wants to do now? The latest? He wants to redistribute people into communities. Like if if there's an area that's more rural, excuse me, and maybe it's a high income area where people worked hard all their lives and they retired to a higher income community, he wants to bring people from lower income classes into that community. He wants to redistribute not just money, but people.
What they're doing, and Bernie kind of thinks this way too, is taking money from the rich and giving to the poor. These people have worked their way up to the wealth that they have, and if you put 10 people on an island in a situation and gave each of them $100,000, within 10 years, 2 of those people would control most of that money, and there would be some in the middle that would have part of it, and these people down here would have none. And that's just the way the system works, and that's the way our capitalist system is supposed to work.
Yes.
But now, when Mitt Romney was running for the presidency, that they harped on how much money he had. Now, well, he earned that money.
Yes, and he gave away a lot of it.
Yes, he did.
Just like Rich Tarrant and you know, IDX.
That's right. Yep.
They were so generous to the universities. They built a community health center in Burlington. you cannot, when you try to make everything equal for everybody, you take away every human incentive to excel,
That's right.
to work hard and be productive and gain the rewards. All of that is taken away. That takes away a basic human drive, a basic human opportunity.
That's right.
And we had a country of manufacturing and people designing things and creating things. And we had, our generation was very, very productive.
Yes, yes.
And we became a really fine country. But we're on the decline because there are people in control who want to equalize everything, which takes away all incentive for anybody who might be highly motivated as an individual. We have to get back to the individual, the value of the individual. It can't all be about, well, we're a community, so we share everything.
Well, I do have a problem, a big problem with these companies that are going overseas so they don't have to pay taxes. Now, we just lost Union Carbide out here, and they moved their operation to Dubai or somewhere over there. And probably their main incentive was to get out of paying taxes in this country, and that is absolutely wrong.
Well, there are two ways of looking at that, and I don't like that they've moved out of the country either. But there is a solution, and it's a governmental solution. We have the second highest corporate income tax in the world, okay? So all our country has to do is say, we're going to lower the corporate income tax. Please come back to this country. We're not going to continue to penalize you for being successful. All right? We want you back here. We're going to take away some of the regulations, these stiff regulations that prevented you from expanding your operation here. We're going to make it easier because we appreciate the jobs that you offer, the taxes that you pay, you know, how you affect the productivity of our nation, and we need you back. So as long as government continues to penalize with regulations and super high taxes, we're going to lose more and more.
Well, we are, and
But there's a solution.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, but there again, the government never saw a tax they didn't like, and it's going to, like a lot of the General Motors cars now are made in China, and that's
Well, Mexico, Ford is down in Mexico.
Yeah, I drive a Toyota, and that was made in Tennessee. So, tell me how that works.
So, yeah, well, we're driving business out.
Yes, we are. Yes,
And you know, this is off topic a bit, but it's something I want to cover at another time. And that is, I'm very concerned, which something we don't hear about, folks, but I've done a little delving, as to how many of our country's natural resources, mines, and other natural water are being controlled by companies and bought by countries other than the United States. I think we need to preserve our natural resources and keep them under ownership in this country.
Yeah, there are a lot of foreign investors.
That's scary.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That a lot of the big manufacturing plants are being purchased by the Chinese and the Japanese, and it's
Global Foundries.
That's right. Yeah.
IBM.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it's not Dubai, but it's something like
it's
the Arab. It was one of the Arab nations.
Arab Emirate or one of those.
Yeah. So there are mines out west that now are owned by Russia. I mean, what are we doing? Selling our... Do you know that... let me see. China is withdrawing water from Lake Michigan.
No, I didn't. I wasn't aware of that.
and Nestle's is bottling it.
Is that right?
Now, why is that allowed? Water is the next gold in our world.
Oh,
It's a natural resource that is critical to human life.
it's not an inexhaustible supply either.
Exactly.
Our-
So why aren't we protecting that? Why is everything for sale?
I don't know. Well, look at Jay Peak. There are a lot of foreign investors coming in.
EB5s,
Jay Peak,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and
Visas. You know, it's a quick path to citizenship. Now I understand there's an investigation of Jay Peak and that whole setup. I didn't read it in depth, but there's I think a federal investigation going on as to how that's all unfolding. I'm not saying it's not a good project, but I do not like the EB5 visas. I don't think we should be selling citizenship. I don't think we should have a porous border that lets anybody to come through.
All right. Well, I agree with you. Donald Trump is getting in a lot of trouble with the
I love
things
it.
he's saying, but what he's saying is absolutely true. He's
Absolutely.
right on.
He is right on, and it ruffles the feathers of some.
Yeah.
But the more we dilute our American population, we get into multiculturalism, and that's a topic for another show. But that has destroyed England and France.
That's right. We only need to look at England and France and see what's happening over there,
Yes.
and it's coming this way. And
Fast.
yeah, you take I think it's Flint, Michigan. It's got such a high Muslim population that people in another part of town don't dare to drive through that.
Well,
'cause
that's the same thing that happened in Europe. The populations of Muslims, for instance, are growing exponentially, and now they have no-go areas. Even the police won't go in there. And then they set up Sharia law. And that's going to happen in this country unless the people wake up. And the Sharia law allows men to beat their women. The women can't show their bodies at all. I mean, it's just girls aren't supposed to go to school. There's so much to it. But we don't want Sharia law, and we should have a law in this nation that prohibits the use of any legal system in our country other than our constitutional law, period.
Well, our president canceled the National Day of Prayer in this country, but he allows the Muslims to pray right in the middle of New York City, in the middle of the street,
Yep.
and on the mall in Washington.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
yeah.
we're weak.
Yeah,
We are weak, and it's frightening.
yeah, it is. I'm concerned. I'm getting up there in age, so I don't know how many more years I'll be around. But
Me
my
too.
children and grandchildren, I have great concerns about what this country's going to be
Absolutely.
when they get to our ages.
And the folks who are watching tonight need to stand up and start reading and paying attention and understanding what's happening to your country. And what do you want for your children and grandchildren going forward. So be sure to order this book, Proud to be an American, a children's illustrated book. Get that, if you will.
Well, it's, one of the roots of our problems is that the people in this country don't turn out to vote either. And
Well,
they
the
don't
legal voters need to turn out. Now we have a new license,
Oh, sure. Now
driver's card for people who are not citizens. And I want to know, in fact, I called the Secretary of State's office and my town clerk. They're having a big meeting for all the town clerks next month, I believe, a 3-day meeting to discuss some changes in the voting scenario. And I want to find out what that's all about in advance so that I can
people
get
with
the
the
word
driver's
out.
license are allowed to vote.
Well, I don't think so, but that little driver's privilege card looks so much like your license that you have to really read the fine print. So is there going to be something that they have to slide their card into to verify that they're a legitimate voter?
I don't know. I know that most towns now have the voting list, registered voter list, and we check that off as they come in to vote, and so that kind of.
But Jerry, today you can register the day of the election.
Yes, you can.
Who is going to check? Who's going to verify you that day?
Wow. Yeah, that's true. They'll look at your driver's license and ID.
And you can register yourself. You don't have to be a justice of the peace or what do you call? I used to be a justice of the peace, and I could register people and sign it that I registered them, verified their information. Now you can just walk in the day of the election. What are we trying to do? There's no security now, no way to protect the integrity of the voting system, and I think it's intentional.
It could be, but it's a shame that when you have an election that you're lucky if a third of the registered voters turn out to vote.
Well, we're down to our last 2 minutes. You're right. We the people, according to our U.S. Constitution, if you've read it, folks, if you haven't, get it out and start reading it. Look it up online, go to your library, call me, I'll see that you get a copy. We, the people, need to know our laws, know our supreme law of the land, the Constitution, and even our state constitution, and make sure that we get out to vote, that we know who the people are who are voting, what they stand for, what they're going to do on a particular type of issue, and don't give them your vote until you've satisfied.
But people don't even know who their congressmen and senators are. They don't.
Know.
They're complacent about it. They don't get.
So how do you fix that?
I don't know. I would like to know that myself.
Well, education is part of the key, and you have to start with the children, but there's a big gap in there.
Well, I like the fact that a lot of the schools now are having elections. Around election time, they have mock elections for the kids to vote. That gets the kids interested in what is going on.
Well, and then to follow up on that, they need to present to them what the whole system is about, why we have the kind of government that we have, why you have the authority, the privilege, the right, the responsibility to vote, and how important that is. And how you need to be an informed voter, an educated voter, knowledgeable, before you just go, okay, we're down to the last here. I have to wind down. Thank you so much for coming on. This has been fun.
You're very welcome. Yes,
You'll have to come back again.
Okay, enjoyed it.
Folks, thanks for tuning in. One more hot night on on Sound Off. I'll see you again next week, and if you have any ideas on topics that you would like to see discussed, give me a ring and we'll see what we can do. Good night, stay cool, and have a great week ahead.